420 it is. Today is pot day, and for that, the Denver Police Department tweeted, "We see you rolling, we ain't hating. Ha ha. Seriously though, Denver, please remember to consume responsibly this 420 weekend." Signed, Department. Isn't that nice? Now, the flip side of that is the story of Freddie Gray. And yeah, this has something to do with pot too, because Gray was apparently, it may have something to do with pot too, because Freddie Gray was apparently chased down by a couple of bicycle riding police officers in Baltimore. Struggle, what do you call it? Taken down to the ground, thrown to the ground, and taken off in a police van. And then a little later on, and Freddie is a young black man in Baltimore. And after the van went a short ways, it stopped. They opened the back door of the van, pulled Freddie Gray out, threw him on the ground, and enhanced his restraint, shall we say. I'm guessing that he was moaning or making noise or whatever. And by the time he got to the hospital, he was dying. He was in a coma, and his neck had been severed, or his spinal vertebrae, his spine had been severed 80%. That takes a hell of a lot of force. Really beat the crap out. And what was his crime? He was running in a neighborhood known to be, quote, high drug activity. The war on drugs, Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan's war on drugs, and look at incarceration. Nixon started this thing. Reagan put it on steroids. I mean, we were, out of a million people in the I'd have to get the numbers to quote them. But in any case, the percentage of people that we have in the United States incarcerated has just been exploding ever since the administration. I mean, exponentially. Point where we've got more people in jail than any other country in the world, including like radical dictatorships, like North Korea. Well, actually, nobody's sure how many people are in jail in North Korea, and I suppose you could argue the entire country is a jail. But point made anyway of all the countries in the world. And then to sort of add insult to injury, I don't know how else to say it. Bird, who is a former city clerk in the very little town in Missouri of Parma, Missouri, was elected mayor. Now, what's unique about Tyrus Bird being elected mayor is that she is the first black person, the first woman to be elected mayor of Parma. And what happens? 5 out of the 6 police officers resign from the police force. The city attorney quits, the city clerk quits, the water treatment supervisor quits, and they all say they're quitting because they're afraid of safety. Right? Because the town just elected a black woman mayor. Resident Martha Miller told KFVS, "I don't think they hurt the town any by quitting, because who needs 6 police for 740 people?" So I don't know the backstory on Parma, but I'm guessing that there might have been some of that Ferguson stuff going on there, where they're just using the people as an ATM, the police department. And now they're thinking, somebody might come down on us. So what do we do about this? I've mentioned this a couple of times on this program. This piece that was published, Lawrence Brown wrote it. He's an assistant professor of public health at Morgan State University. Studies the impact of segregation and forced displacement on community health. And his headline, and he wrote this back a week or so ago. I mean, he was the news hook for the story was Walter Scott, who was killed in North Charleston, South Carolina, by sheriff's deputy, but the whole story is no. That was in Missouri, wasn't it? No, that was South Carolina. There's so many. It's hard to keep them straight. So anyhow, the point that this professor makes is that he says of the 75 largest cities in the U.S., only 35% of white police officers live in the cities they subserve. Most of these white cops live in the white suburbs around the cities. And fewer than a quarter of the white officers live in the town that they serve in the towns of Baltimore, which is where this, most recent thing with Mr. Gray just happened, having his neck severed. Baltimore, Houston, Detroit, Denver, Newark, Los Angeles, Birmingham, Tampa, Orlando, Minneapolis, Oakland, and Miami. More than 3/4 of all the white cops in those towns don't live in those towns. But the professor ends up saying, until we wrestle with residential segregation as a causal factor and reverse America's betrayal of the 1960 Fair Housing Act, we will continue to see more Michael Slagers gunning down more Walter Scotts. Until then, perhaps black people should begin extensively deploying cop watch patrol units, appointing our own police to fight crime with an anti-racist, restorative justice approach. I'm all in favor of that. And I suspect that I know to some extent in some communities, not just African American communities, in African American communities, people are starting to do that, creating local cop watch units. And in this era of camera phones, it's a great idea. But my question is, since we have been voluntarily resegregating over the last couple of decades, segregation reached a low point back, I believe it was in the 80s. I mean, it's been a while. And we are resegregating, only this time it's not as a consequence of redlining laws or, sundown town laws or, all that kind of thing. This appears to be voluntary on the part of both white people and black people. And other races as well are creating kind of enclaves. So the question in my mind is, in a society where people appear to want to segregate, how do you integrate? How do we do that? Or will it just naturally happen if certain variables, external pieces of the equation are fixed? Like the economy. I mean, the average black family in America has around $5,000 in net assets. The average white family, it's $87,000. If we could change that ratio so it would be easier for black families to have a down payment to racially mixed neighborhoods or white neighborhoods and make them racially mixed. Is that going to work? I mean, we've legally struck down a bunch of structural things. What do we do?